Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating work of psychoanalyst Karen Horney. And we're going to ask a question that's really at the core of her entire theory and honestly at the core of our own lives. How much power do we actually have to change? It's a question that drove everything she did, so let's unpack her answer.
So let's just start right there. I want you to think about your day so far, all the things you've done, the way you've reacted to people. Were all of those things conscious choices you made? Or did some of them feel automatic, almost like a compulsion you couldn't quite control? This very question, right here, is the jumping-off point for understanding Horney's entire view of humanity.
You see, Horney's work was built from the ground up on her clinical experience with patients she described as neurotic. But for her, neurosis wasn't just some dusty clinical label. It was a fundamental state of being. It's a state defined by these compulsive, rigid reactions that essentially box a person in and just completely stall their potential for growth.
So what's the real difference here? Well, Horney didn't see some huge, thick walls separating healthy people from neurotic people. Instead, she saw it more like a spectrum. And the main distinction, the thing that really separates one from the other, is simply the degree of compulsivity. A healthy person has flexibility. They have choice. A neurotic individual, on the other hand, is driven by these powerful, unconscious compulsions.
All right, so that brings us to our first big theme. How much control do we really have? And what does that say about our basic outlook on human nature itself? I mean, this is the classic debate in psychology, right? Free will versus determinism. Are you in the driver's seat of your life, or are you just a passenger, being carried along by forces you can't even see? Now, you'd think that focusing on the compulsive nature of neurosis would push Horney towards determinism, the idea that we're all just locked into our patterns. But what's so fascinating is that she lands squarely on the side of free choice. She was convinced that through hard work and self-awareness, even someone trapped in neurotic cycles could wrest some control back. It's a fight for sure, but it's a fight she believed we can actually win. And, if you believe that people have the power to choose and to change, well, that naturally leads to a really hopeful and optimistic view of humanity. You're not doomed by your past. You're not doomed by your wiring. There's always potential there. This belief is just perfectly captured in her own words from 1945. I believe that man can change and go on changing as long as he lives. She really saw in us these inherent curative powers, this natural, powerful drive toward becoming our best selves, something she called self-realization. So if we can change, the next logical question has to be, what are the forces shaping us to begin with? And, maybe more importantly, how aware are we of them? And here we go again with another key tension in psychology. Are we just a product of our childhood, what's known as causality? Or are we being pulled forward by our hopes, our dreams, our goals, what's known as teleology? And once again, Horney takes this really balanced, middle-of-the-road position. She absolutely believed our childhood experiences can throw up major roadblocks to our growth, no doubt about it. But she also believed we have this natural, built-in goal to realize our full potential. So for her, it was never an either-or. It's both. Our past and our future are constantly pulling on us. As she put it back in 1939, the past in some way or other is always contained in the present. You just can't ignore your history, right? It's woven into your present reality, and it shapes the very values that are guiding you into the future. Okay, so we're shaped by both our past and our future. Got it. But are we actually aware of any of this stuff? Horney's take was, not really. She believed that most of us, and especially neurotic individuals, are kind of flying blind, with a very limited understanding of what's truly driving our behavior.
And for someone struggling with neurosis, wow, these blind spots run deep. They're often completely unaware of their own core inner conflicts or the deep-seated self-hate that's running the show. They might not see what Horney called their neurotic claims, these unrealistic, entitled demands they put on the world, or this really interesting one, their need for a vindictive triumph, which is this hidden desire to see others fail just to prove that they were right all along. They're acting on all these powerful motives without ever consciously realizing it.
Okay, so this brings us to our final section, where we're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, all the societal forces that are shaping these inner conflicts.
So, back when Horney was writing, the dominant view, thanks largely to Freud, was that biology is destiny. Your anatomy defines you. But Horney, she pushed back against that hard. She argued that social and cultural influences, things like the expectations of our society, are way more powerful in shaping our personality than our anatomy is.
And you have to understand this was absolutely revolutionary at the time. Horney directly took on these core Freudian ideas that were just everything in her field. She asked, what if the psychological differences between genders aren't about anatomy, but about culture? She completely dismantled ideas like penis envy, and she reframed the famous Oedipus complex, not as some unavoidable biological soap opera, but as a product of social dynamics within a family. For Horney, the spotlight shifted directly onto our environment.
Now, an interesting side effect of focusing so much on neurosis is that her theory actually ends up highlighting our similarities more than our uniqueness. By identifying these really common compulsive patterns, she saw people falling into pretty predictable coping strategies, these shared ways of dealing with the anxieties that life throws at all of us.
All right, so let's tie all of this together. What is the ultimate takeaway from Karen Horney's concept of humanity? What's the bottom line?
Well, it's really a message of profound, practical optimism. She gives us this view of humanity where we have free choice, where we're shaped by social forces that we can actually understand and even critique, and where we are all driven by this powerful, natural goal of self-realization. She truly believed that we have the power to heal ourselves. At the end of the day, Horney's message is this: your past matters, of course it does, and society matters. But they are not your destiny. They shape you, yes, but they do not get to define your future. You can change. And so, to wrap this up, we're going to turn her big question right back on you. Horney was convinced we all have these blind spots about what really motivates us. So, what's one of yours? What's a motive that's driving your actions that you rarely, if ever, admit to, even in the quietest moments by yourself? Just thinking about that, well, that's the first step on the path she laid out for us.